The Justice Society of America is back and we're doing some time traveling, so let's get into it. What's up, my people? The JSA returned to comics late last year thanks to writer Jeff Johns, and today we're continuing our overview of the title with issues 3 and 4. If you haven't read the title or want to catch up, you could do so by checking out our video on the first 2 issues right here. As for today, we're going to see what happens after Huntress runs into another version of the JSA. The issue picks up in 1944, where we see soldiers looking for the Nazi Degaton. They are then given intel on where he's at as we are taken to Degaton's castle and see him and his scientists trying to break through the 4th dimension. At which point the soldiers break through his castle wall, ready to take him down. As Dr. Fate narrates, saying a Nazi scientist attempting to break into the 4th dimension, a group of American soldiers attacking his lab. They think this madman is vaporized in a blast as Degaton uses the device his scientists made. But instead, he was thrown forward toward the year 1947. 5 days later, he takes Hitler's dream for his own, tries to rewrite history and conquer the world. But he is stopped by the Justice Society of America, which we saw many years ago in All-Star Comics issue 35. So essentially, this is just recapping Degaton's origin, reminding us who he is. And we see that Dr. Fate is basically telling all of this to Huntress, who just arrived before them, continuing to say, Degaton twists time again and again, but the JSA is always there. The Huntress replies, I've seen him, he killed my JSA, he killed my mother. Detective Chimp asks, 26 years from now? She replies, yes. Deadman then says, so you're future Huntress. I mean, I recognize the costume. Is Huntress your mom? She replies, she was a family friend and an inspiration, but my mother is Catwoman. With Deadman saying, I bet I can guess who your dad is. Huntress then tells them, my mom gave me the snow globe before Degaton murdered her. I don't know what it is or how it works, but it pulled me back through time. First to Dr. Fate in 1940, and now here to you. Deadman says, well, we'll have Madame Xanadu take a look at it. She knows a thing or two about crystal balls. Fate then asks, how do you know me? She replies, you and I were teammates. With Deadman saying Degaton kills him, as Fate begins to freak out because this is a young, inexperienced Khalid Dr. Fate, but Detective Chimp tells Fate, it hasn't happened yet, kid, at least from our point of view. Chimp continues to say, we'll take this globe over to Xanadu for some analysis. Fate, you take Future Girl to the rest of the Justice Society. It's here we get an intro of the Justice Society of this time, as we see Power Girl, Alan Scott Green Lantern, Jake Garrick Flash, Stargirl, Dr. Midnight, a female Wildcat, and Jakeem Thunder. They're taking out a bunch of Bizarros who the Angled Man released, but when Huntress arrives, she helps take out the Angled Man by shooting him with her crossbow, sending the Bizarros back to where they came from. The Justice Society is confused as Fate says, hey guys, sorry for the entrance. I didn't know she was going to jump in like that, but it's always nice to have some extra help. Right? That's Batman and Catwoman's kid. The society is confused as Huntress introduces herself. We are then taken back to 1945 where Degaton is, and he senses Catwoman's talisman. Meanwhile, back in the JSA headquarters, Lantern says, my ring has verified she's telling the truth. As Power Girl says, at least what she thinks is the truth. Long story short, she's basically warning them about Degaton. Then Fate jumps in saying, can I remind everyone she says he kills her entire team and I'm supposedly on it? We're going to change my fate, right? Green Lantern says, as soon as we find him, at which point Degaton shows up saying, oh, Alan, don't bother yourselves. I'm here now. It's so good to see you all in your prime again, right before you fall. And that leads us to issue 4. But first, have you guys seen the new dial cubes from today's sponsor, Figuerama? Check these out. They're basically small collectible diorama pieces with the dimensions for each being a compact 6x6x6 inches. And they have really cool scene models based on Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hill 2, and Castlevania, all of which are great, but I'm definitely a sucker for Castlevania. On each of these dial cubes, the characters can be removed, and the dial cube itself can be used as a photo studio for characters in your own personal collection. I know my fellow action figure modelers out there are digging that. Anyway, this is Figurama's first PVC product line, and despite being a smaller, more affordable collectible product at only $119.99 each, it still has the same level of detail and care as all their amazing, highly coveted statues. Not to mention, you'll get them at an even lower price with that glorious variant discount. Let me tell you, as a person who loves to put his collectibles on display, one thing I totally dig about these dial cubes is that they're easy to showcase and they're also stackable, whether you want to go vertical, back to back, or side to side. You can also get store exclusives and add-ons only available for purchase directly from the Figurama Collector's website, including different versions of the characters. And as I mentioned, just for the variant fam, if you use our discount code VCDIO, you'll get a 5% discount on your Dial Cube purchase. The Dial Cube pre-order is open now, so click the link in the description and use our code to add these beauties to your collection. Okay, so issue 4 of the JSA title picks up at the shop of Madame Xanadu, where we see Deadman and Detective Chimp have brought Xanadu the crystal ball of the Huntress. Xanadu says the snow globe globe is a far cry from the crystal balls that I usually utilize as conduits to tomorrow. I sense a storm within this, desperate to be unleashed. Where did our traveler get it? Chimp replies, all I know is that it's had her bouncing all over time, from the future to the past to the present. She says she's on a mission to save the JSA of every generation. Xanadu says, yes, I see Batman, Catwoman, and their daughter now. Helena Wayne's instincts will forever be caught between seeking justice like her father and rebelling like her mother. She blames herself for her parents' deaths. That could be her undoing. Deadman asks, who kills Batman? Am I allowed to ask that? Xanadu replies, you're allowed to ask the fates anything, Boston. The Batman's death must not be interfered with. As the globe freaks out, giving warnings saying, beware, Eclipso is within. Only the Green Lantern can save the Red Lantern. Jay Garrick will find joy again. Do not trust the witch girl, as it explodes in her shop. With Xanadu saying, we need to get this globe back to Helena Wayne before the power she's been imbued with fades away. Degaton will kill her without it, and then nothing will stop him. We are then taken to Huntress, who gives us a rundown of what's been going on so far, which I'll tell you guys as it's a nice little refresher. She says, my name is Helena Wayne. I became the Huntress to honor my father, inspired by the second chance he gave my mother. I used the Justice Society to give supervillains an opportunity to reform their legacies. My mother hated that idea. The hypocrite. A time-traveling Nazi named Degaton murdered my entire team of Redeemers, my friends, then he killed my mother. Before she died, she gave me a talisman that pulled me back through time so I could warn the Justice Society about Degaton's plan. He's out to murder every generation, working his way from the far future to the past, always beginning with Dr. Fate. But there's more to his plan than revenge. I need to survive long enough to find out what that is and stop him so I could save my team and family. This brings us to exactly where issue 3 left off, as we see Degaton at JSA headquarters ready to kill the Justice Society, asking, who's first? He attacks Green Lantern first, then the Flash, then Thunderbolt and Joaquin, and even Power Girl before Huntress uses her crossbow to shoot off his finger. For whatever reason, he can't predict her moves like he can the other heroes, since the globe is having some effect on her, not allowing him to predict what she's going to do. Huntress says to Fate, I think he kills you first in every timeline because he can't predict what you're going to do either. Now's the chance. Get up. He does and sends Degaton back in time, temporarily defeating him. At this point, Deadman, Xanadu, and Detective Chimp show up, with Xanadu saying Degaton is impossible to destroy now. He made a deal with the last Lord of Chaos. He is an ever-altering paradox, and if he isn't imprisoned soon, the Justice Society of America will not only be erased from history forever, but replaced by something far darker. We then see that Fate sent Degaton back to 1947, where he's greeted by an older version of himself who's also now missing a finger thanks to his younger self. We learn that his older self is waiting for him to kill the Justice Society so that their future can be changed forever. After this, we are taken back to the Justice Society headquarters, where several members are talking as Xanadu tells them Degaton is trying to enact a ritual that will allow him to replace the JSA with a society of his own throughout all time. And we learn that in order to combat this, Xanadu says they need to perform a ritual of their own. So they have Stargirl, Joaquin, Thunderbolt, Dr. Midnight, and Wildcat all working on that, which includes a blood sample from Degaton. Detective Chimp says once we get the snow globe imbued Helena Wayne, she'll be able to do the rest. But she's missing, as Power Girl walks in telling everyone she went AWOL to Gotham. As we find out on the last few pages of the book, she went looking for Batman, and when she finds him, she says, I'm your daughter. I've come back in time to save your life. But as we know, messing with timelines and fate is never a good thing. Even Xanadu said earlier in the issue, Batman's death must not be interfered with. But despite that statement, it looks like it's going to be anyway, and with that, the issue ends. In true Jeff Johns style, this series continually ramps up as it goes on, getting crazier with every issue. I'm a fan of the Justice Society, so I'm really happy they've been getting more spotlight lately, and thankfully, this book has been really good so far. The main thing I'm curious about, though, is the snow globe. This is the snow globe introduced in Watchmen, and then ended up in Dr. Hunter and the Time Master's possession. Then at the very beginning of the Zero issue for Flashpoint Beyond, also written by Jeff Johns, Batman had Mime and Marionette steal the globe and Janie Slater's watch for him from Dr. Hunter's lab. Just as a reminder, Janie Slater is the former girlfriend of Dr. Manhattan. Anyway, throughout the 7-issue Flashpoint Beyond series, Corky Baxter of the Time Masters kept telling Batman, you don't want to mess with that, and warned him that if Dr. Hunter found out that he had this stolen from his lab, he was going to be pretty upset. And this was a threat Batman needed to take seriously because Dr. Hunter is the leader of the Time Masters. But to no one's surprise, Batman ignores him, and we later learned that the reason Batman stole the globe and watch was to try to stabilize the Flashpoint universe long enough so his father Thomas Wayne could fix it, which was directly tied to the letter Bruce received from his father via the Flash in the original Flashpoint story. So clearly the globe has stayed with Batman all these years since that event, as we see Catwoman, Bruce's wife, eventually give it to Hunter Huntress at the end of the first issue of this Justice Society of America series. It's also clear that this globe is messing with all sorts of things again and could come into play in the Dawn of DC reboot. I mean, think about it. The globe is able to change and manipulate timelines, or at the very least give you access to those timelines so you could change and manipulate them. That being the case, the real question is, what role are those pieces going to play in DC's overall plans, and where is all of it ultimately going to land? Is it just setting up and rebooting a new Dawn for the Justice Society, or is this a much bigger piece of the greater DC Universe reset puzzle? Speaking of, we also posted a Dawn of DC episode a couple of weeks ago highlighting some of the most interesting changes they've made so far. You can find that right here, and we'll continue to roll out those recaps as Dawn of DC progresses. Either way, I'm not sure if I want the events of this JSA title to mess with any of the other DC stories, because for the most part, they've all been really solid in their own right. However, with that said, in Geoff Johns I trust, as he's one of the best modern comic book writers and was the guy who fixed the DC Universe with Doomsday Clock. That is, before they decided to blow it up and reboot his reboot. It's also worth noting that Geoff Johns is a massive Justice Society of America fan. I mean, he created Stargirl for the Justice Society and based her character on his late sister. So I'm not sure he'd want this story to bleed into the broader DC continuity. In fact, the more I think about it, my guess is he's just using this globe to fully make sense of the reset for the Justice Society of America continuity alone. But what do you guys think about this JSA title so far? Do you think this Watchmen globe is going to have a bigger role in the DC Universe? Let us know in the comments. Otherwise, we'll see you next time when we talk about Transformers Beast Wars.